Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan, and we are going to finish off a two-part podcast series looking at the updated Eagles depth chart. We did offense in the last podcast. Go check that out. It's on all major platforms. And now we're going to go defense, which Adam has undergone major changes between the losses in free agency and the additions. The first 5 picks in the NFL draft, all devoted to the defensive side. So now we've got a depth chart that looks drastically different. So this should be a pretty exciting episode.
Yeah, they lost 5 starters in free agencies, and you gotta eventually replace them long term, which they've attempted to do. Not all of them. You can't solve every issue one off season. They did sign some free agents. Things are going to change a little bit here. Yeah, personnel wise, they're still very young. In the fact, coming into the draft, they were the youngest defense in the National Football League. Obviously, once Brandon Graham retired, so yeah, look, they and of course they cut Darius Slay, who's the oldest starting corner in the National Football League. So yeah, they're very young, which is a good thing, by the way. Mm-hmm. And they're going to replenish the roster with young players, a bunch that they got in the draft, but not all would be starters though. That's the interesting thing. They've kind of looked at not just starters, but they've looked at depth as well.
That's right. And one of the guys we're going to talk about who's new to the pack is the first round pick, JihaadCampbell, out of Alabama via IMG Academy, via Timber Creek High School in Erie, New Jersey, right around my neck of the woods. And if you haven't caught it yet, I really suggest. We had a great interview with Timber Creek's high school football coach. His name is Brian Wright, and he really took us inside the growth and development of JihaadCampbell. This is not a kid who stepped onto the varsity field day one just because he was bigger, stronger, and faster than everybody. He really didn't really come into his own until his junior year, which was Brian Wright's first year as the coach. So they kind of grew together. And Adam, the amazing thing is, and people can check this, it's out on the podcast platform, out on the YouTube. I really encourage people to listen to it because there's a lot of really good intel and insight on JihaadCampbell. But his first game as a varsity player was Timber Creek versus Williamstown High School. So who do you think was playing for Williamstown High School at right exactly the same time?
God, why am I drawing a blank? I go ahead.
Donovan Eziraku.
Oh, Eziraku. Wow.
So can you got, who would have thought, like, I don't know, this must have been 4 or 5 years ago, that you're seeing 2 guys who are going to get drafted within 13 picks of each other, late first, early second round. Crazy. On one football field. That speaks well to South Jersey's high school football culture.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
really
if you go back several decades, it's much better than you think. Because we always think down south, certain part, Texas is the big one, California and some other states far away from here, from the East Coast. But no, South Jersey, New Jersey in general has put out a lot of good players.
Yeah, I even joke with Brian. I said, listen, if there's a high school football game in South Jersey with 2 top 50 NFL picks, future NFL picks on it, you're probably thinking like Don Bosco versus Montvale Academy, like a North Jersey type of environment. But no, that was South Jersey. And the cool thing about those 2 is, I'm going to try to get in more on this too, is that one's an Eagle, JihaadCampbell, and the other is a Cowboy. So they're going to be back on the field against each other again in the near future. Yeah. So that's exciting, and we'll get into him on the depth chart. Also want to make a quick announcement for the folks, if they haven't seen it yet on social media. I have started a new position at Philly Voice, phillyvoice.com. I am the deputy sports editor. I just want to say thank you to everybody at Philly Voice for entrusting me to do the job. I'm looking forward to starting it. I'm going to be doing some writing, doing some editing. Of course, I'll be writing about the Eagles, but I'll also be writing about other Philadelphia sports teams as well, bringing new ideas to Philly Voice, working alongside Jimmy Kempski. So I'm excited about that. So please make sure you're going to phillyvoice.com and checking out all of my work and our work as a staff there. And just to let everybody know, because I know this will be the follow-up, ITB is not going away. Inside the Birds, and I'll thank Philly Voice for allowing me to continue doing what we do here at Inside the Birds. There may be some subtle minor changes as we go forward from a time standpoint, but for what people know of ITB is going to remain throughout. So we're really excited.
Congrats, man. Yeah, it's really cool, man. Jimmy does a great job. Philly Voice is they've been around for a while, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, they've become a nice little force in the industry. So I'm looking forward to to joining the pack there. All right, Adam, before we get into the depth chart on defense, the updated one, there was some news regarding the Eagles and defense, and Jordan Davis, who's their fourth-year nose tackle. He was a first-round pick, and the Eagles decided they were going to exercise the fifth-year option on his contract. Now, that's 2026 because 2025 is his fourth year. Fifth year at 2026, it's $12.9 million. And a couple of different thoughts on this, but why don't you explain for the people what it exactly means? Because now there's a tiered system to the fifth-year option that I don't think has always been in place. They changed a few things in 2020.
Yeah, so what happens is every first-round pick has a fifth-year option available. It's up to the club to exercise it or decline it. Now, going back 15, 20 years, it was only a certain amount of players would get the fifth-year option. Now it's all 32. Now, the fifth year for him is just under, we're going to round it off to 13 million. It's 12.9, but we're going to round it off to 13 million. Now, it's definitely surprising because the argument against it is obvious. He hasn't been as good as they thought he was. However, as Greg Cosell told us, Greg has been, and Greg only goes by the tape, right? He had been one of the harshest critics based by his tape study. Nothing else. He doesn't care about anything else, right? He's talked about the hand usage, getting stood up, leverage, not using his natural power well, and this and that. But Greg has always pointed out, like he started off, I remember Greg made a point of us to, on our shows in 2023, the first quarter of the season, he 2 or 3 times said, make sure we talk about Davis. I want people to know how well he's doing. So we talked about it. Then Jordan faded. People want to say it's conditioning. Everyone could have their reasons and so forth, but the technique was poor and he faded and whatever, like the rest of the defense, right?
Right.
Kind of up and down, more down than up for majority of the season. But then the final quarter or so, plus playoffs, this is kind of what the Eagles were thinking. It's not quite what they thought to trade up, but you saw some positivity.
You did.
Now, what is the for and against doing this? For it is obvious. If he blows it up this season, they didn't pick it up. Then they go, wait a minute, we're not going to use a franchise tag. Then then we're going to have. Then it's going to cost us a lot more. So having this fifth-year option, it's sort of, they call it the term in MLB and NFL is optionality. You have the option. You could extend them off of it. You could see what the market bears. Like it gives you a lot of options. Like the Giants do with Kayvon Thibodeau, right? We know that Carter's going to take his job. Okay, that's the way it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the Giants and you don't pick it up, what if Abdul Carter gets hurt? What if he doesn't have a good year? They're a little different than where Howie is. Howie's the best general manager in the NFL, arguably, or maybe some people don't think arguably. And you have with the Giants where they're just fighting to keep their jobs. So obviously they want to have Thibodeau for another year. But it also gives the ability. Let's say you want to move Jordan Davis. I know people will say, well, who would want him? Well, if he plays well and the Eagles sort of undecided whether to extend his contract, they could trade him. If you don't extend this fifth-year option, you can trade him because he's not under contract for 26. So I get why they're doing it. There is the feeling like, well, why would you do this for guys not quite where you thought? And that it's kind of like when they used Nelson Aguilar's fifth-year option, which was surprising at the time. Nelly started to come on a little bit, but it was $10 million back then. It was thought to be a lot of money. So yeah, it's the optionality part of it is big, and Howie also, we should mention, loathes to let his guys walk. Guys that he drafted are studs.
That's a big part of it.
Yep. So and look, the Milton Williams one, they tried in the regular season hard to get him extended. It just didn't. Milton smartly bet on himself. That was a great bet. He rolled double sixes. Wasn't for lack of effort on the Eagles' part. They tried, and it became an issue because of Bond's breakout and Sweat, and it's kind of it's a good problem to have when you have so many guys you would love to keep, but you just can't keep them all because you've got so many guys you got to pay, and they did extensions, and they got Jalen Carter next year, and maybe and Nolan Smith maybe next year. Yeah.
I'm pretty much on the same page with you. I think there were some slight changes to how the fifth-year option has operated over a few years that make it both favorable and unfavorable in this situation. What's unfavorable is it's now guaranteed.
Fully
It
guaranteed.
used
Yes.
it used to
Yes.
be only
Yeah.
guaranteed for injury. So you could literally do what, like they could have done this if it were a couple of years ago. It's like, yeah, we'll pick up the 5th year option, but if he has a really bad 4th year here, we'll just cut him and it's not guaranteed. No big deal. Can't do that anymore. However, the tiered system of it now, if he were a Pro Bowler or even a multiple time Pro Bowler, the number would be a lot more expensive. It would be something closer to between 21 and $25 million. If you really come down to it, to have Jordan Davis on your team in a year from now, from next year, at 13 million for 1 year is not exactly exorbitant. And it gives you that year to see if he can even get 30 to 40% better than they've gotten out of him. It's not an exorbitant amount of money. So I think that's the advantage in it. Even though he's not a $13 million player right now, maybe he is coming up next year. To your point, the questioning, as I understand it, about his weight is not as much of an issue anymore.
Yep.
It's what you said. It's his technique, it's hand usage. Conditioning is not the issue either. It's more about just becoming a better, more complete player. And he did start to play a little bit better in limited snaps throughout the last half of last year and in the playoffs. So you can understand why they're going to have him on the team this year anyway. Why not gamble and see if he really gives you more value? So I understand it. We'll see. It also, if he blows it up, Adam, to your point, gives him some time to work, an extra time to work on
that's big
term deal. And you're not negotiating against a franchise tag number. You're negotiating against a 5th year option number, which is a lot lower. So that helps out too. And your last point is probably the most valid one. Howie has done this for underperforming players before. Nelson Aguilar 1, Derek Barnett 2. Derek Barnett also had his 5th year option picked up, and he really wasn't as much of an impact player by that time. He almost seemed to get worse from his rookie season. And then if you remember, he got hurt the next year, and then he came back. Remember, they signed him to a 1-year deal for a lot of money, a lot more than we thought he was worth, and then they wound up trading him to the Texans in the middle of the year. So that's a basic roundabout way of saying they're just trying to play a longer game with Jordan Davis to see if they can develop him a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting. It definitely, I mean, it's a surprise at some level. I get why they did it. I understand it. I know he's matured a bit from what we understand. That's great, but it's about productivity now, folks. If you want to evaluate how he's doing, you don't need to guess. Look at the snap counts. The snap counts will tell you everything you need to know.
Right.
That'll tell, because it's about Fangio trusting the player. If he trusts him, he'll be on the field more. If he doesn't, he's not getting any more snaps than he did last year. Sure. And that would be terrible. That's not what you're looking for. It's impossible to know exactly what that'll look like in terms of snap counts to say he's doing really well. But I love to see him get at least 50% of the snaps and be a better pass rusher. That's what Howie talked about when he was drafted, when he was asked, kind of what the thinking was, because, he's a massive human being. We know he's going to be a good run game guy, but you don't trade up for run stoppers. You got to be the complete package. It's not going to happen overnight. You want to see development. Usually by year 4, the guy's already matured to the player you want him to be. He hasn't yet, but again, you're betting on the player and the coaching from Clint Hurt and Vic Fangio and what he did late in the season and building off that. They've been with him. They know he's been working out because when he's been around, they get it. He knows this is a big year for him. And then, of course, they got the Jalen Carter situation. If Carter continues to do this, he could wind up being the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history, or certainly one of the top ones. So, I mean, that's a lot of cash, man. We kept telling folks 2 months ago the Eagles are going to trim cash. They've done that in a major way. Yet they've extended some players and so forth. But it's just a fascinating situation with Jordan Davis. He's a very unique player. We've not seen anyone with this type of body type move the way he does, but we know about the technique stuff. That's just got to continue to get better, but they got a good one that Clint Hurt coaching them, so we'll see what happens.
All right, let us get into this Eagles post-draft depth chart on defense, and we're going to start like we always do right up front, Adam, because, it's going to look a lot similar when they're in their 5-man front in the interior as far as having Jalen Carter there. Jordan Davis is going to continue to occupy that role that he plays early in the game on rundowns. We'll see if he could get, a little bit more well-rounded skill set. But for now, that's what we know of him. And then you have Moro Ajomo and the 4th-round pick, Ty Robinson, maybe even a little Thomas Booker there. You have a little competition to see who's going to start at that other they call it end. It's really interior defensive linemen in that 5-man front.
Yeah, Ojomo, barring something highly unforeseen, will be starting. That's their plan. It's Carter, it's Ojomo, it's Davis. Now Thomas Booker in very limited time did a great job. Ty Robinson, of course, they're very high on. Boy, I'll tell you what, the more personnel people I talk to, the more it's really rare to talk to anyone who doesn't think he's going to be a good player at the next level. He's got kind of a weird body. He, as one area scout told me, he doesn't really have a 43 defensive tackle body. He's more for a 34, which is the Eagles run an odd man front. He's an odd man front tackle. But he's explosive, and we'll see that I know some teams that gave him a 3rd-round grade, so we'll see. He's got to prove it, but they're excited to have him. And Byron Young, who was a former 3rd-round pick of the Raiders, who just didn't really play for the Eagles because they didn't really need him, and now they get him in for a full offseason. And Gabe Hall, who they get signed to a very significant practice squad contract last year, and he just never really made it, but he's still here. He's got all the measurables, folks. He's a perfect fit from a size standpoint for what the Eagles do, but he didn't really, there's a reason why he wasn't drafted. You can't just have measurables. You got to be a player, and he hasn't shown that he's a player yet, but it's going to be well coached here by Clint Hurt.
Yeah, you just wonder, and you hate to judge on draft pedigree. Moro Ojomo's been here. He'll be the leader in the clubhouse to start in that 5-man front. You do wonder, though, we know Vic Fangio plays the best players. Doesn't matter what your contract says. Ask Bryce Huff. Doesn't matter what your pedigree is. You wonder if Ty Robinson looks really good and adapts start. Could he make that a 50-50 split? Could he overtake Moro Ojomo? I mean, that's the question that has to be answered, and it'll be an exciting competition. He is a 4th-round pick. Ojomo's 6th, but we both know that Ojomo was sort of underdrafted. Scouts felt he was a better than a 6th-round pick because he had really good interior burst.
He was actually a 7th-round pick, yeah.
I'm sorry, 7th-round pick, but I remember everybody saying they were surprised that he that low. Yeah.
I mean, Greg Cosell loved him. Greg raved about him, and he asked us, why was he dropped? Why did he drop? Little smaller frame. What's weird, he's got longer arms, but he's not 320 pounds. He was under 300 pounds when he was drafted.
Right.
So we'll see where his weight is. But yeah, this is the cool thing. Again, they're really young. They proved last season, the Eagle, there were some D tackles they who were veterans, but they decided not to go in that direction, and they went very young. BG, they wanted BG snaps when he would play inside. They don't have that anymore. Now, whether they find someone else from the edge standpoint who can do that remains to be seen, Jalix Hunt or someone like that. But, it's a very young group. Carter, Davis, Ojomo have played together. Booker was with Eagles for the first time. Robinson's a rookie. Young and Gabe Hall didn't contribute. So it's going to be a little bit of a new look here.
100%. All right. Let's move over to the edges where the Eagles lose Josh Sweat. And, of course, Brandon Graham retires. We know that Nolan Smith is coming back from a torn triceps. But, man, Adam, you kind of look and you say there's names here. There's depth here. They obviously need some of these guys to produce, but guys from all sorts of pedigrees. I mean, it starts with Nolan Smith when he does get healthy, and Jalix Hunt, who showed you a lot last year as a 3rd-round pick. And I think expectations will be pretty high for Jalix Hunt. And then you get into some of the guys that they signed, Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche. These are guys who have had some success, more Ojulari than Uche, but Uche did have a really good, I think, 3rd year in the league with the Patriots where he had double-digit sacks. Bryce Huff's still on the team for now. Patrick Johnson comes back. O'Shawn Mathis, Antoine Powell-Rowland, the guy that they drafted in the 6th round, KJ Henry. And we haven't even mentioned that the 1st-round pick, JihaadCampbell, will also get some exposure at the edges. So there's a lot of names, a lot of sorting itself out that needs to be done there.
The cool thing is, even the veterans, it's not like they're 10 years in. Ojulari and Uche are not 30 years old, so they're still relatively young. Now, Ojulari's had just the worst injury problems. It's a shame. But, man, his tape, when he's healthy, he's got starter tape. He just has had a problem staying on the field. But the Eagles guaranteed his contract. It's not a lot. It's just over $4 million. But he, at worst, he'll be probably the first edge off the bench. Smith definitely started if healthy. That's not in question. The question is, who starts opposite him? Is it Hunt? Probably. Who saw this? When they was drafted, in fact, what the people forget, he was inactive week 1 because he was a developmental player. They had no plans to play. And then BG gets hurt. Behind the scenes, by the way, Hunt was really progressing, but BG gets hurt. Huff gets hurt and gets benched. And voila, Hunt has to play, and he plays well. And he's so far ahead of where they thought he would be, or anyone in the National Football League thought he would be. Nobody saw this, and it was a great story. So right now, he's a leading candidate to start up at Smith. Ojulari could start. We'll see. But at worst, he'll be the third guy. You got Uche, for sure. He's got to revive his career. It's been kind of a downward trek for him. Bryce Huff, look, he's under contract. He's making $16.75 million, fully guaranteed. Obviously, no one's going to take his contract. You might as well see, now that he's healthy, no one has any expectations for him, but there is talent here, but he was just not a good system fit. But in year 2 in this thing, see what happens. And Patrick Johnson's really only a special teams player. O'Shawn Mathis was drafted by the Rams. And Powell Rowland, look, he's a guy that dropped farther than people thought. He's got good size. He's explosive. And KJ Henry was drafted by Washington. So the cool thing is they're really young. There's talent here. They got to grow up fast here with the Eagles. It's kind of funny. For so many years that we've done the show, this is year 8. It was kind of a veteran group. It's no longer that. It's pretty young.
It's really young. And I'm with you. You see Smith and Hunt and Ojulari. I mean, these guys are going to be your top 3, unless something's wrong with Ojulari, gets really hurt. But that's your top 3. And then you kind of look and you say you probably have 2 more spots on the 53, and special teams will factor in. And that's where Uche, Patrick Johnson, Antoine Powell-Ryland, who I agree with you, has probably more upside than your average 6th-round pick. Not an explosive athlete, but not a bad athlete. His athletic testing was pretty good. It just wasn't like through the roof like half the other guys the Eagles get at the edge position. But he'll be in the mix. And, of course, Mathis and KJ Henry will sort of face an uphill battle. But special teams will factor in. And also the Eagles will have the luxury of counting JihaadCampbell as an off-ball linebacker when they do the numbers, but using him as an edge rusher also.
I mean, you look at if you look at the back end guys like Powell-Ryland, right? I look at his production of his career completely blossomed in Virginia Tech. He for the 3 seasons he was at Florida, he didn't really do much.
Right. Then
he left to become a starter. And I mean, I know sacks, you have to grade them individually, as Greg Cosell says, but 25.5 sacks over 2 years. Come on. That's incredible production.
Agreed.
He had 6 fumble recoveries, which is 6 forced fumbles and 6 fumble recoveries, which is very impressive. I know he's under 6'3", but the measurables are still good. He was over 250, by the way, at the combine. Wow. I mean, we'll see. He's got to prove it. I know he's a rookie. And how he's rookies, almost all of them make it. Not always, but a majority of the time they're on the roster.
Right.
So, yeah, there's some upside with this group. They've got explosion. Nolan Smith, I know he's got to get over the surgery. In Hunt, we mentioned. I like this group. It's the cool thing is you've got Ojulari's on a prove-it deal. When I say prove, it's on a 1-year deal. It's not like $10 million. He's got a lot to prove. And Uche is looking to just recharge his career, who did have the one monster season with New England.
Yeah. I would say Powell-Ryland, of all the day 3 guys, is the one that I might intrigue me the most. I'm not saying he's better than Ty Robinson or Matt McCollum, but I just think that there's some real opportunity there for him. If the production he showed at Virginia Tech matches what he can translate to the pro level, you might get something like with Morrow, right? You might get something better than this 6th or 7th round pick. So we'll see. All right. Hey, good news that we've been talking about our friends at Stretch Zone now open a new location in Warrington. And remember, if you want, it's very easy to get a 30-minute free, no obligation stretch at Stretch Zone. Do it. Adam does it. I do it. We love Stretch Zone. You should get there too. And again, free 30-minute, no obligation stretch. If you go to stretchzone.com, you can sign up, or you can walk into the nearest Stretch Zone in your area. They're blossoming up everywhere. Or you can even do it old school, pick up a phone, get their phone number, call them, and you can schedule it right then and there at your fingertips. And they have a great system-wide access. As part of your up-to-date membership, you can go to any of their locations. They'll let you in. They'll have your information. They'll know how to treat you. Right. This is what Adam is, the Stretch Zone nomad, I call him, because he moves into random Stretch Zone location, and they know who he is.
By the way, when I go to training camps, this is sort of my ritual. I go to Stretch Zone before because I know I got to fly. The big thing for me is range of motion. I've got for tennis USTA coming up. I will not play without going to Stretch Zone because I need the range of motion. I got my hips. I need to do more with my hips because they get stiff. And the big thing is for those of you who play pickleball. I know there are a lot of pickleball players out there. I've only played it once, but I know because you got it's the short burst on pickleball. You get your hamstrings done. I would recommend as a racket player, I recommend the hamstrings. Get your hips done. Get your back done. For those of you, I know you're a jogger. Get so you can run. And in tennis, I run a lot.
I'm a runner. Do not insult.
Yeah, runner. Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, runner. Yeah, right. But and the other thing is, you mentioned it last week. The reduction in stress. I cannot tell you how happy I am when I leave there.
Yeah, folks,
Really
you got to
leave it.
Absolutely. Please go sign up. Get that free stretch just to even give yourself an opportunity to see what it's like. I guarantee you will want to go back. You will want to sign up, and you'll really reap the benefits of that.
For sure.
That's zone.com. All right, let's move on to inside linebacker, which is suddenly a really fascinating position group for the Eagles. And of course, Nakobe Dean, as we mentioned, he's coming back from the patellar tendon rupture, right? That required surgery. Yes. Our information is that they're hoping he's back sometime in October. So you're not going to see him in training camp, and probably not much you're not going to see him in OTAs, and they'll just play it by ear in training camp. They're gonna make sure he's fully healthy before they give him his medical clearance, obviously.
Yeah, the shame of it is he was playing at such a high level.
He was.
I would argue he might have been a Pro Bowler. That's how well he played. And as a blitzer, tackler, leader, by the way, from what we understand, it's a shame. And so right now it's Bond, obviously, who's a stud. At least for 1 year, he's a stud. I would expect him because he's mastered this scheme. Who knows what would have happened with his career if he would have signed elsewhere. In fact, we know he would have played inside backer. That's the funny thing we haven't talked about before. Yeah. Let's say he signed with another team. Who knows? Probably would have backup edge rusher and special teams player, which is what the Eagles originally signed him for. It's funny how things work out. In Vic, we trust, right?
That's
so
right.
Right now, and Jihad's coming back from the shoulder labrum surgery. So they're going to start him out, by the way, at inside backer. He'll be in that room from a mental standpoint. He'll have to learn that. And then eventually we expect to get over the edge group, and we'll see what happens there. So right now it's of the healthy guys, it's Bond and Trot Jr., Mondon, who's a 5th-round pick out of Georgia, who they're excited about. And really, when you look at it, we won't talk about the undrafted free agents till the contracts are signed, because already I've seen like 5 or 6 guys, not with the Eagles, but 5 or 6 guys around the league already backed out of deals. This is so funny. Because they didn't sign you. It's really awful business. And I don't want to blame the agent of the club because I don't know the background on it, because sometimes it's either or. Listen to, folks, if you haven't heard it, listen to the interview we did last week with Samir Suleiman, the former contract negotiator for the Panthers. He tells a story which is crazy about how something fell apart with an agent. Yeah, it could get really nasty. Yeah. But anyway, so that's it, man. They're still kind of light. And, Van Sumeren, by the way, is a fullback now. We'll see if they let him take any inside backer snaps. So right now you'll see once OTAs, once we get to the veteran camp where it's required to practice, you have to be there at least to 10. Bond, Trot Jr., Mondon, Gant, Campbell. I don't know what if he's allowed to work, it has to be non-contact. He can't take contact on the shoulder. So it's still kind of light there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. All right. So 2 things. I wanted to address that. I'm going to go backwards. Number 2 is first. They are very light there. And I think we talked about this, right? When OTAs begin very soon, you're going to have not just a first team, but a second team, a third team, and a fourth team. You have expanded roster. You have like 90 players, I think.
Yes, correct.
Now, right now, from a health standpoint, you have Zach Bond, JihaadCampbell, Trotter, Mondon, and Gant. So that's 5 healthy inside linebackers. I'm sorry, if you're playing 2 linebackers in each string, that only gives you enough to play to fully play a first string and a second string. What are you doing when you get the third and the fourth stringers out there? Because you have all these rosters. These guys get reps and get snaps. You're either going to overwork this crew, or you're probably going to be signing a couple of guys off the street fairly soon to occupy the camp body roles at that position.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have an undrafted
Van Sumeren, right? They moved Van Sumeren, the fullback. They lost Warren Burks, and then they lost and Nakobe's coming back from the injury and won't be out there. So that's important.
Yeah, that's where I expect an undrafted free agent, and then they could decide closer to training camp, or by the end of OTAs, maybe for the veteran camp, they sign a veteran. But yeah, they are light there. Whereas as we move to the back end of the defense,
Wait,
they're going to have
more.
competition. This is now some people would say is a great competition, which we've talked about for we've had shows years ago for a show like this where you go, oh boy, well they've got a lot of guys, but I don't know how good they are. So let's start a corner, right? Let's start a corner. We know Quinyon Mitchell.
I just want to make one last point on the
Okay.
linebacker on the battle. I think it's really fascinating that you're going to have this explosive athlete who really has only played 1 year of off-ball linebacker. I'm talking about Campbell, right? Who has all the explosion and twitchiness and stuff, but lacks the pedigree of, say, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who is the opposite. He is not an explosive athlete. He is not known for being twitchy, but as you saw, he impressed the Eagles last year with just high football IQ. He obviously has the great family bloodlines. He knows how to play the position. He's played it his entire life. His instincts are great. His understanding of where to be is great. So you have this really interesting dichotomy of two guys competing for the same spot who probably couldn't be more opposite in how they play the position and what they bring to the position as far as their pedigree. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting as they battle it out on the football field.
Yeah, Mondon, I'm looking forward to also seeing him because
Agreed.
he's explosive. I know he's smaller from a weight standpoint, and we'll see if how that plays out, how they decide how they want to get him a little bigger. But bottom line is there are questions at inside backer. Other than Bond, who's in his second year playing inside backer, it's hard to imagine he'd play at that elite level again. Maybe he does, but it's hard because that was, quite frankly, some of the best inside backer play I've ever seen here. This includes Trot Sr.
Yeah, I mean, that probably affected Seth, right? Like, or Willie T. I don't know, somebody like.
Yeah, I know. Seth Jordan, of course, is great, but it just something that it's hard to believe and hard to imagine. And Bond's apparently amazing guy.
Yeah.
Good for him that he got that contract. It's just when you come out of nowhere and do something, it's sometimes hard to play at that level. But and then his coverage, his range, and it's just something that the league. Before we move on, though, I'm glad we stayed here at inside backer. The league's going to have to take a look at something like this. When you draft a guy, maybe it's not what you thought. Maybe you want the guy to be an edge rusher, but if the guy's got the measurable, he's not an elite edge rusher, which Bond never was. Maybe you try him an inside backer. Maybe learn from what you should always in life study these successful people or programs or companies. Now, I know it wasn't Howie's decision to sign him, but it was Vic's decision to move him. Maybe, and we've talked forever how these teams they clearly don't get it with the offensive defensive lines. It seems obvious, but they don't do it. Study the Bond situation, which came out of nowhere. I know it'd be hard to duplicate, but that's one of these things where we haven't really seen this before. And now with Campbell, it's ironic, like he's going to do both, at least initially, and we'll see where he ends up full-time.
Right.
But I'm surprised that we haven't seen this before with Bond in terms of trying something different like this.
Agree, because we've seen the opposite. We've seen guys fail at off-ball linebacker, but their skills, their athleticism translates to the edges, like Hassan Reddick, right? And there were even people before that. So
the Cardinals.
Yeah, I know.
Terrible.
All right, so let's move on to the quarterback depth chart now. And hey, listen, you got Quinyon Mitchell on one side, and I think you feel pretty good about him there at the right cornerback spot. Obviously, at left cornerback, that's where you lost, as you mentioned, Darius Slay. And you've got a competition going on. The leading candidates will be Adoree Jackson, free agent signing, and Kelee Ringo, the fourth rounder. You would think the Eagles would love to see Kelee Ringo play well and win this spot because they drafted him and want to invest in him. But the fifth round pick is an interesting kid, Mac McWilliams from Central Florida, because in his college career, he has played both inside and outside. But as you brought up in our podcast after they drafted him, the measurables will tell you they scream inside, but maybe the kid with his speed and his toughness can make it on the outside. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I know teams we spoke with saw him being able to play inside or outside. The measurables, because he's got less than 30-inch arms, would say to you that he probably will have to play inside, but not so quickly. Let's see what happens.
Right.
Another guy, a lot of people in scouting around the league liked. The more I talk to people around the league, I'm surprised that they like the draft as much as they have. I mean, yes, Campbell's got some injury concerns, okay? But from a tape standpoint, honestly, the 6th-round pick, Cameron Williams, we got the most criticism, but they see the traits. They see some really interesting tape. Whereas, you go back to 2020, Howie's last bad draft. I mean, it was just bludgeoned. It wasn't just the Rager pick. It was like going through, other than Hurts, but no one knew Hurts was going to even play. He was drafted to be a backup. But overall, you look at the past 4 drafts, and this one hasn't played out yet, but it's no one's really killing Howie's drafts anymore. It's hard to be honest with you.
It's hard. That's why I think he got, some of the benefit of the doubt on this draft, and whether or not some of these guys who people may or may not have heard of turn out to be pretty good. But certainly hitting at the secondary last year, Adam, was the key to the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, because it had been such a long, long time. Forget one. I'm sorry. Forget the fact that he hit on 2 corners, right? Or a corner and a nickel. Yeah. It took him 20 years just to hit on one.
How many years did we talk about Howie's failures at corner? It was just now the argument would be, well, they didn't spend a lot of high resources. City Jones didn't work out. Right. Unfortunately, he tore the Achilles, and it just never became the player they thought. They missed on that one.
Eric Rowe,
yeah, they didn't.
Eric Rowe, was that Chip? Was Eric Rowe a Chip only draft, or was Howie
2015? Yeah, and you love when Howie had that press conference.
We didn't see a contract extension after 1 year, so
that's ridiculous.
I guess he can't really come out and say, "Well, my defensive coordinator really hates him." So I
know exactly right. And the sad thing is, he would move to safety and then get paid. He actually became a good safety.
Yeah, he did.
But so corner, it's just a matter of, okay, could the 2 become one? Could Jackson Ringo combo become a decent? One of those guys become a starting corner, a good one? We'll see, because honestly, they don't have much depth. Other than that, it's Mac McWilliams, who we mentioned, could be a combo player. Eli Ricks, who played a lot of snaps 2 years ago, but the new staff didn't like him in terms of thinking he could contribute. He didn't really. And Castro Fields was yet another 49er draftee from your school, Penn State, and that's pretty much it right now.
Yeah. You wonder if Ringo plays well, and you wonder if Adoree becomes one of those guys that they waive at the deadline or cut at the deadline and then try to bring him back, a week or two. When it's not vested, you know how it works when they do this with the veterans, they cut them and then they bring them back on like a different salary, right? Whereas it's like you get your roster bonus per game that you play and everything like that. So, but they are thin at that position, so I wouldn't be like so anxious to do that either.
Yeah, Jackson turns 30 this fall. He's had the big injury history. Eagles have always liked him. We talked about this. When he signed with the Giants, he confirmed what we put out that time, that the Eagles were in on him when he came away from the Titans. So, look, they got him now. We'll see what he's got left.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little questionable, to say the least, about at that left corner position. Nobody has any idea what to expect. The thing about Ringo, he's got length, which you like. He can run in a straight line, but it was just not. First week of training camp, Andrew DeCecco and I saw it. Man, Ringo was really not close with him and Isaiah Rodgers. Rodgers took the early lead and never looked back, and that's not a good sign. But you know what? He's got urgency. It's his 3rd year. It's a big year for him.
Yeah. So
we'll see what happens.
Oh, absolutely. All right, on to nickel, where, as we've been reporting for much of the offseason, the Eagles want to keep and will keep Cooper DeJean at nickel, barring any unforeseen changes. Right now, that's where he operates best in Vic Fangio's defense. And so he is your nickel. Now, like we said, the kid they drafted in the 5th round, Mac McWilliams, has that outside nickel versatility, and you need a backup. So it really looks good for Mac McWilliams like you said, draft picks usually make the team anyway, but as long as this guy is competent, not only can he make the 53, but he can probably get on the field as a dime corner, special teams. If there's any injury at nickel or outside, you wonder if there's an injury at outside, right? Does Cooper move outside and then you play this kid at nickel? I mean, there's just a variety of different ways where this kid can get on the field as long as he proves that he's up to the challenge of it.
Yeah, no doubt. The thing is about Vic's defense, he coaches a certain way with the mirror match system. He's got to learn it the way that they teach it here. And that's the thing, is as you mentioned earlier, you don't get on the field unless you do it Vic's way. Mm-hmm. And he teaches his system different than his disciples, because I talked to a buddy of mine who worked for him with Denver. I've talked to this guy a couple times over the years, and He said Vic does it his way. We do it sort of his way. Well, everyone does it. They're going to run zones, but the way they teach it is a little different than Vic does. So we'll see what happens. But Mick Williams very well liked in scouting circles, and then Perry Nickerson, by the way, played for Vic with Miami, who's a veteran journeyman nickel. So yeah, they've got some guys there for sure.
You were talking about Vic's way, and I was thinking about this recently with JihaadCampbell and Cooper DeJean and Zach Baun all on the field at the same time, especially as they wait for Nakobe to come back. Vic really has, Adam, the ability to keep a quarterback guessing, especially with his sim pressures, as to which one of these guys might be the fourth rusher in a four-man rush that doesn't start off looking like a four-man rush, because the sim pressure doesn't start off looking until the guy either creeps late or comes after the snap, right? So in the past, we've also seen Zach Baun in a four-man front just come down and be the edge. He kind of like makes it a makeshift five-man front. Mm-hmm. We might see the same thing with JihaadCampbell, and then we might see it back-to-back, like just constant moving of guys and then bringing Cooper DeJean and dropping those guys. I feel like he has such a really good chess board here with those three guys on the field where he can do different things out of similar looks that really confuse a quarterback.
Yeah, and they've got the guys to do it. So that's and DeJean. I'll ask Greg the next time we talk to him and I know DeJean, he didn't start the whole season because it was really the Bengals game where he became their full-time nickel. I wonder if he thinks DeJean is the best nickel already. It's hard to argue against it. He's such a super freak athlete, and it's just one of these things where, it's interesting about DeJean before we move on. When you and I got intel about why he went in the second round, we got the same kind of response. What is he? Is he a corner? Is he a nickel? Is he a safety? Mm-hmm. And that unfortunately matters because you have to wind up playing eventually one position. But man, and I know it's only 1 year, and we'll see if he can repeat this success. He probably will if he's healthy. The league learn a lot. Like when you see a guy who is an athletic mover like this and is so good, does he have a weakness? Probably not. Why the hell was this guy not a first-round pick?
I know. It's crazy. You're right. No, it's a good conversation. Is he already the best nickel? If McDuffie moves back to nickel with the Chiefs defense, that gives Cooper a run for the money. Yep. The kid from the Bills is really good. His name is just escaping me. Is it Teron?
Teron Johnson. Yeah, he's really good.
Really good nickel as well. I mean, there are some pretty good nickels in this league, but it's sort of top-heavy. Once you get past the top five, it's not like, like there's just a bunch of household names. But those three are really, really good at their jobs. All right, we'll get to safety in a second. A reminder, if you're buying a car, if you're trading in a car, if you're just car shopping, you have to go to Sky Motor Cars. Either go in or visit their website. But please hear this message from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, like we said, stop in at Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA. Make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. You'll get great customer service. You'll get great knowledge. You will see great inventory. It is awful experience these days buying a car or trading in a car, but not if you go to Sky Motor Cars. It's the opposite. It's a wonderful
pleasure. Yeah.
It's a true pleasure.
Yeah, my wife and I sold 2 cars through Brett Schulter, the owner of Sky Motor Cars. And if you read their reviews, I remember saying to Brett, I'm like, wait a minute, I've never seen anything like this. And read any Amazon or anything on the Google reviews, people put their comments in, and then read the ones for Brett Schulter and any car buying website. It's remarkable because you just talked about, they give them the complete experience. There's no pressure at all. And if you live outside the market, because I know Brett ships the cars across the country, you can see the entire inventory at SkyMotorCars.com.
There you go. And also, we mentioned last pod, they're doing that giveaway, giving away a JihaadCampbell autographed picture, I believe. You just have to go to @SkyMotorCars on Instagram, find the post, follow the instructions about liking and sharing, and you will be a candidate to win the autograph. All right, let's move on and finish this off with the look at safety. Certainly a different looking room now with some newer names in the competition as opposed to last year when you had Reed Blankenship, you had CJ Gardner-Johnson, who stayed healthy, and then they traded him.
Come on, man.
The guy finally stays healthy and he gets sent packing.
What's that?
I said the guy finally stays healthy and then he gets sent packing.
That was a weird one. That was a weird one. That's all I have to say about it. Anyway, so Blankenship's obviously well entrenched as a starter. This is another one of those stories where athletic testing wasn't great. Though his production was great at Middle Tennessee State. And he worked his way up rather quickly as an undrafted free agent. It just shows you, once again, never ignore the undrafted free agent signings. Someone's probably going to make it, or someone's going to surprise you, whether it's C.J. Edwards, Reed Blankenship over the years, or any other guy. So Blankenship's a terrific player. Greg Cosell's told us, I guess, through people he talked to with the Eagles, he's one of their leaders, tone setters. C.D. Brown, it's almost a make it and break it year. Why is it? Because they drafted Andrew Makuba in the second round, or Drew Makuba. I guess that's what they call him. So we'll call him Drew from now on. McCollum, who's been here for a bit. Lewis Cine, I know a lot of people are excited about, as we reported at the time. The Bills they were practicing him at linebacker. Eagles' plan is to use him at safety. And Andre Sam, who's an undrafted free agent, who's back with the Eagles. So they have some players here, and it'll work its way through long term. You feel bad for Sidney Brown. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and he's making up for lost time, and they drafted a safety in the second round. So unless the Eagles change their mind, in year two and put Makuba at nickel and DeJean at corner, I don't know that there's a future for Sidney Brown as a starting safety. He's got to have, quite frankly, an unbelievable camp to keep Makuba out from starting.
I think the biggest obstacle for Sidney Brown is not even his fault, is that he doesn't really fit ideally his skill set with what Vic Fangio likes to do with his safeties, whereas Drew Makuba is a perfect fit. And it's not just being hybrid, like he can play safety and they're going to look at him at nickel, Drew Makuba. But that Vic likes to start off with one look, two high, two short, or one high, and then move into two high. He likes to do the guesswork thing on the back end. And to do that, you need a versatile safety who can fulfill all the roles, because you need the quarterback to think, well, he might be here, he might be there, he might be there. And with Sidney Brown, you don't have that guesswork. He's not a multi-dimensional safety. You mentioned it. He's a guy who can come up and hit you and has really good straight line speed. So he kind of reflects more like an old school box safety than a multi-dimensional hybrid safety. So I don't know how unless he just plays unbelievably at camp, just from a pedigree and a skill set standpoint, I don't know how he's going to appeal himself to Vic and the coaching staff more than Makuba, as long as Makuba is playing well and doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough fit for him. It's going to be a really interesting training camp for Makuba and Brown and Lewis Cine. I'm like the fans. I'm very interested. This guy was a first round pick. Okay, I get it. It didn't work out for him. Minneapolis, we were told that Brian Flores was not really a fan of what he could do in his defense. So it didn't work out, and he went to Buffalo, and the Eagles signed him off their practice squad. So we'll see what happens here. And McCollum he's one of the tallest safeties in the National Football League, but he's a back end of the roster player.
Yep.
Who's now in his third year with the team. So it'll be, the Makuba Sidney Brown situation is fascinating. I'm looking forward to seeing how they use both and seeing who wins.
You didn't get, only because someone asked this on YouTube, and it was surprising to me, you didn't get any intel, because I haven't, that Cine as someone that they could look at as also a potential nickel, right? That's not his.
No, I've never heard Cine.
Like
he's not
the linebacker type. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that. Never. I looked into it to see had been used. No, he's not had that experience.
No, you got to be able to man cover in those situations and play two-way goes, and that's not his forte.
Yeah, Makuba's played nickel. By the way, Makuba's played nickel. That's another position, as Vic Fangio would say. We've learned a lot from Vic. I love it. Nickel is nickel. It's another position. It's not corner, according to Vic Fangio. So I'm just going to quote him. So, and he's also played. He's played obviously safety, outside corner, limited experiences. Greg Cosell said very limited. Clemson. Yep. So this is a guy. And I have to tell you before we get out of here, universally liked in the scouting world. Not one. I would say between you and I, we probably did some overlap of certain people we spoke with from other teams, but I don't know that everyone liked Campbell, but you weren't sure where you would line him up. universally, like everyone in scouting I talk to says, "Oh, this guy's a stud." Like everyone likes him.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, to go back to something Greg Cosell also said to our Patreon folks, and I put the shortened version of it up on the podcast platform. People should check it out. If you're looking at Mac McWilliams as a versatile piece who can fulfill the role that Avonte Maddox played, especially in his first year, Greg mentioned that Mac McWilliams played a little bit of safety also.
Oh yeah,
right. So he's played outside corner, nickel, and safety. If that doesn't scream Avonte Maddox replacement, because that's what Avonte did. He played nickel and he played safety. In fact, the only thing Avonte really didn't do was play outside corner. So that even gives Mac a little bit more if they can get him out there. But yeah, it seems like a real natural, logical replacement if McWilliams can.
And remember that Maddox did that out of necessity because they had injuries over the years. Remember when Jim Schwartz moved him to safety?
Yeah, as a rookie, he had an interception.
They had to. And honestly, I look at with him Detroit, and I wish him luck. There's probably an opening for him to play safety there. But yeah, this is where offense, we kind of know what we know the way it's going to go down. Pretty much everything's settled other than right guard. And you're going to have a lot of competition. The cool thing again, I'm just not used to looking at the competition of being young, 5 years or under, in the league, something like that. So it's kind of cool.
100%. All right, great stuff. That was fun going through the offensive and defensive depth charts. We do this around this time every year. Pretty soon, the NFL schedule is going to be announced.
Oh yeah, 2 weeks.
Finally be all over. Is it 2? I thought it was early May. Is it mid-May?
It's the 14th or so. I don't know, something like that.
All right. Well, we'll still have some great content until that comes out.
Got a ton coming. Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.